About Association of Indian Management Schools? It's a 34-year-old networking body of B schools in India, having a membership of about 600 top management institutions. AIMS focuses on professionalization of management education, protects interests of B schools, represents management institutions at national and international forums, financially supports members in academic events, funds research projects on management, disseminates management-related knowledge through its annual Management Education Convention, conferences, seminars, roundtables and workshops, organizes free weekly webinars on knowledge sharing and inspiring young leaders sessions for management faculty and students, supports B schools in admissions through Atma, AIMS test for management admissions. Visit https://atmaims.com for more details. Publishes a biannual AIMS Journal of Management. Visit https://aimsjournal.com for more details. Circulates a quarterly e-newsletter on AIMS activities. Conducts workshops on case writing. Encourages AIMS members to be part of decision-making processes as members of chapter management committees and the executive board. Encourages students' participation in free weekly quiz competitions by providing support to interested institutions. Facilitates networking and interaction among B schools. Why would you like to remain a non-member of AIMS? Pay a very low one-time membership fee and enjoy many lifetime benefits. Visit https://aims.org.in for more details.
Good evening to our respected speaker for today, Dr. Debaprasad Chattopadhyay, and good evening to all the participants who have joined in this webinar. Good evening. I am Dibyendu Nandy, and I'm a professor in marketing and operations with ICFAI Business School. And I welcome you all to this particular inspiring young leaders session on emotional intelligence. And this is a series of webinars which is being organized by Association of Indian Management Schools for the last 1 week or more than that. And today's topic is emotional intelligence. Before we actually, proceed for today's session, I take this opportunity actually to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Debaprasad Chattopadhyay. Dr. Chattopadhyay is a senior professor and head of the department in human resources at Globsyn Business School, and he has been there for 17 years now. Earlier, he was with Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan for around 9 years, and Professor Chattopadhyay has obtained his doctorate in HRD and OD from Academy of Human Resources Development, Ahmedabad, in the area of spirituality in management. He completed his MPhil with the first class with a distinction and is a graduate of University of Calcutta. Professor Chattopadhyay has also done his PGDM along with the program in marketing, sales and advertising management from IIM Kolkata. He has over 50 years of academic and corporate experience, and he has had very successful stints inland as well as overseas in reputed organizations like Merck, Organon, and Dr. Reddy's Laboratories Limited, where he was divisional manager, training and development at the corporate office in Hyderabad. In addition to being an academician, Professor Chattopadhyay is a life member of National HRD Network and ISTD, and a member of ISABS, NIPM, CMA, and BMA. He is a life member of his alma mater, Don Bosco School, Park Circus Alumni Association. Professor Chattopadhyay successfully completed a residential program on strategic human resource leadership from National HRD Network. And he has also attended Human Laboratory process course from Indian Society of Applied Behavioral Sciences. And he has also done an online course on giving voice to the values of Darden Business School, University of Virginia, USA. Professor Chattopadhyay has conducted management development programs and consultancy assignments across organizations, and he has, to his credit, several publications in various journals and presented technical papers at different national and international conferences. He is a PhD guide for doctoral research scholars under AIMA, Aligarh Muslim University, St. Xavier's University, and is in the Research Advisory Committee of the Nevotia University. In January 2022, he was also conferred with the Dr. Uday Parekh Memorial Distinguished Alumnus Award from his alma mater, Academy of Human Resource Development, Ahmedabad. Welcome, sir, to this webinar. We are all looking forward to your, your deliberations, to your discussions that you'd be having. And before we proceed and hand over the session to you, I would like to set certain rules for this for all the participants. It is like the participants would not be able to unmute themselves during this particular webinar. If they have any questions, they can put it in the Zoom chat box, and it would be taken during the question and answer session. The feedback and the attendance link will be shared in the question and answer session and is available only for 15 minutes. And those who would be actually giving the feedback, for them, the certificates will be issued in due course. And the topic for today is emotional intelligence. We now hand over the session to Dr. Chattopadhyay. Welcome once again, and it's now your session only. We would be eagerly waiting to listen to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Dibyendu Nandy, sir. So nice and generous of you. I would like to accord my heartfelt gratitude to AIMS, to Dr. Professor Ramaswamy Nandagopal, the president of AIMS. I see on the screen Professor Dr. S.S. Prasad Rao and all other seniors. My sincere and heartfelt regards. And on the screen, I see my friend, the CEO of a very reputed HR firm, Mr. Tomal Chatterjee, and my very own colleague in HR, Dr. Kobita Shastri. So thanks so much, Dr. T. Upendra, and everyone present on this platform, with due regards. And in fact, again, gratitude to my institute, Globsyn Business School. Let me kick off with the session, Emotional Intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, the overall topic or overall nomenclature of this session or of this series of sessions, as Professor Nandy has rightly enunciated, is inspiring leadership. So under inspiring leadership, the topic today in particular is emotional intelligence, because me, being an academician, my job is to go through, literature, management literature and related topics. So this emotional intelligence, which can be calibrated in the form of EQ, that is emotional quotient, management literature says that generally speaking, there are 4 types of quotient. One is PQ, that is physical quotient. One is IQ, that is intelligence quotient. One is EQ, that is emotional quotient. And the other is SQ, that is spiritual quotient. And literature further goes on to mention that the sum total of this PQ plus IQ plus EQ plus SQ is equal to leadership success. I quote verbatim. So if a leader desires to be successful, he or she should have a confluence of these 4 quotients. And today, we are narrowing on one such quotient, that is emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. Before I open my slides, just 3-4 minutes, just as a preamble, to give the history of emotional intelligence as how it came into existence. Emotional intelligence, or EI, as the acronym goes, was popularized by Dr. Daniel Goleman. Dr. Daniel Goleman is very much in harness, 77 years now. He is currently the Director of Emotional Intelligence in Organizational Leadership in Rutgers University in USA. And it is very interesting to know that Dr. Daniel Goleman traveled widely in India and also to Sri Lanka while he was doing his doctoral and postdoctoral research in emotional intelligence. And speaking of the genesis of emotional intelligence from the point of view of Dr. Daniel Goleman, it was precisely in the year 1995 when Dr. Daniel Goleman came out with his famous book titled Emotional Intelligence, and he was writing for the New York Times. And this New York Times bestseller list, it remained, this book, for 1.5 years at a stretch. And Emotional Intelligence, Dr. Goleman's book, has been translated hitherto into 40 languages around the globe. However, when we are talking of the genesis or lineage of emotional intelligence, I do not pause by saying that it all started with Daniel Goleman. There were certain predecessors 5 years back, that is in 1990, Peter Salovey, Dr. Peter Salovey. So it would be not befitting if I do not mention the names of these stalwarts also. So Dr. Peter Salovey from the University of Wales and his co-author, Dr. John, these two gentlemen, 5 years before, that is in 1990, these two authors mentioned in their research about emotional intelligence. In fact, Dr. John Meyer and Dr. Peter Salovey. But again, 5 years before that, that is precisely in 1985, a researcher by name Wayne Payne, W-A-Y-N-E, leisurely later you can Google out, Dr. Wayne Payne, P-A-Y-N-E, he was the first person to articulate emotional intelligence in his dissertation or research paper. So though emotional intelligence was formalized by Dr. Daniel Goleman and popularized in 1995, but a decade prior to that, the two words came into existence. I've already mentioned the name of the authors, but here I would present the works of Dr. Daniel Goleman. Just to give you a verbal snapshot of what is emotional intelligence, says that for getting a job, what is important is IQ, that is intelligence quotient. But for sustaining in the job or for getting promoted across the organizational hierarchy, what is important is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is the fulcrum on which a person's success as a leader rests. In fact, spiritual intelligence first hit the stands 2 years thereafter, that is in 1997. So 1995 is the year that we are focusing on when we are talking of EI. As I said, the verbal snapshot of emotional intelligence is, it is a composite of 5 factors or 5 ingredients. What are these 5 ingredients, or what are the 5 pillars on which emotional intelligence rests? The 5 pillars or 5 ingredients of EI are: 1, self-awareness; number 2, self-motivation; number 3, self-control; number 4, empathy; number 5, social skills. I would now gradually open my PPTs so that as I articulate and as you see, there is a synchrony between what I talk and what you see on the screen. So my first submission is that is Dr. Daniel Goleman, who is regarded for all practical purposes as the father of emotional intelligence, for formalizing EI. And he says that out of the other factors which were articulated by his predecessors, around 12 and odd, he has tapered down to 5. And these components of emotional intelligence are 5 in number, as I said. Now, let me go ahead. So this is where we are, emotional intelligence. So the concept of emotional intelligence was propounded by Daniel Goleman. I already mentioned about Daniel Goleman. He, 77 years of age, actively directs research on emotional intelligence in organizational leadership in Rutgers University in USA. And according to Goleman, there are 5 ingredients of EI. These are self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. You know, I would exemplify each of this by mentioning certain examples so that the august audience here can get a feel of what each one is as I go on to the subsequent slides. So let me start from the last one, that is social skills. I represent an institute by name Globsyn Business School, which is more than 20 years in existence now as a premier business school. And in GBS, as we abbreviate, in Globsyn skills, friends, ladies and gentlemen, anecdotally, I'm reflecting on social skills through this example. At Globsyn, we have something called KYLF, or Kalyani Youth Leadership Forum, which has been formed by the students. The purpose of KYLF is to render human service, is to render selfless service, altruistic service to members of the society, and it has precisely got 3 arms. One is, it is care for the elderly, thereby serving the society, social skills. Second is care for the differently abled people. So that is again social skills, service to the society. And the third is channelizing youth. The very purpose of KYLF in Globsyn is to instill humaneness in the students so that post their education in postgraduate management after 2 years, they become a complete manager, replete of not only technical skills, but also human relation skills. And they are complete managers who are useful to the society, as I said, in rendering human service to the underprivileged and to one and all who need. In fact, when we talk of social skills, we have a plethora of activities which exemplify what is social skills. Standing out every year, we run a signature event. It's a carnival, which we call KYLF Anand Utsav, and you will be happy to know that more than thousands of students and their parents, they come to our campus, and we have different programs, contests, sit and draw, reciting, blowing combs, etc. That is one way through which we build relationship with members who are in our vicinity and around. So that is one. When we talk of the sit and draw contest, we run blood donation camps in Globsyn. In Globsyn, we have eye screening camps. In Globsyn, we have, again, other activities. For example, the joy of giving. In fact, during summer, we have the mango magic. In fact, more so, we are tied up with old age homes in Kolkata, like the St. Joseph's Old Age Home and the Tollygunge homes, old age homes, where we go and play with the inmates, play with the people, and celebrate their birthdays. And on red letter days, even we host Durga Puja so as to bring joy to those inmates. So that is again another event that we do when we talk of old age homes. Thus, this is, friends, what I mean by social skills. In fact, it can take any form, but I'm trying to exemplify by saying how we exemplify or how we demonstrate social skills at our end. Now, going up, we talk of empathy. I go back to my industry days, all through, as my colleague and friend, Professor Nandy, has elaborated. For the first 25 years, I was in the pharmaceutical industry. And I remember from today, 39 years in hindsight, when my daughter was born. I'm reflecting, friends, ladies and gentlemen, anecdotally on the word empathy. So 39 years back, when our single child, the daughter, was born, At that point of time, I was working at the designation of zonal sales manager for East Zone. And the marketing director, those days, there were no emails or no mobiles. This gentleman was, over the long distance telephone from Mumbai, erstwhile Bombay, and asking me, how are things going on? How is Mrs. Chattopadhyay? So everything went on hunky-dory. And on the final day, when the child was delivered in the evening, this marketing director called me and he said, hearty congratulations on the new arrival. So is the mother and the child safe? So I said, everything is safe, sir. So then this gentleman asked, was it a normal delivery or was it a cesarean section operation? So I said, sir, it was a cesarean section. So he said, don't worry, my daughter also is a cesarean baby. And, he congratulated me. I said, sir, please keep me in your prayers. And I hung the receiver. 2 months back, when he came for our meeting, sales review meeting, it was in those days, Dr. Nandy will remember and the friends will remember, I'm talking of decades back. We had a hotel here near the Calcutta airport called Airport Hotel. And we were having the meeting and this gentleman during the recess, he said, DPC, what would you like to have? Tea, coffee, or, anything else? So I said, nothing as such, sir, but anything will do. So he ordered for, tea, beverage and snacks. And while it was being served, he opened his briefcase and he handed over envelope to me. So I said, sir, what is this? So he said, please open the envelope. And when I opened the envelope, I saw a demand draft of 5,000 rupees. I asked the marketing director, sir, I don't at this stage owe anything from the company. This 5,000 rupees is what for? So the marketing director dilated. Say, Mr. Chattopadhyay, you said 2 months back that is Mrs. Chattopadhyay had to undergo a cesarean section operation. So we preempted that probably you had to pay something to the operating surgeon, gynecologist, and anesthetist. So this is just a token of gesture from the company by way of the amount that you had defrayed, which might be phenomenal and monumental. So I said I was immediately tempted to write received with profuse thanks from the company. He said, please don't do so, because this is out of the way. This is not a generalized thing. We give as and when, the person stays on for a number of years in the service. So this is at that point of time, so many years down the line, 39 years down the line, I recall this was one example of empathy that I could figure out that the company, took a stand to at least give something by putting themselves in my shoes, considering that I had to defray, certain amount of expenses for my wife's, cesarean section operation. We all know what is empathy. So empathy is putting ourselves or putting myself in the other person's shoes and trying to understand the problem from his or her viewpoint. So this is my second example when I'm talking of the second ingredient, bottom up, that is empathy. I've talked of social skills by mentioning about our Globsyn way. I've talked about empathy by narrating one example of my pharma industry career. Now I come to self-motivation. I find many students here, it is always utopian to note that someone goes for the first interview and gets selected at the first interview. It is a win-win situation both for the applicant as well as for the company. But life is never a straight path and it never happens that way. Sometimes people go on appearing for interview time more than number, and it has had also happened that people get jobs after 10, after 15, even after 20 interviews. It's not important, friends, young friends, it is not important when to start and where to start. But it is definitely important where to end and how to end. The running might start immediately or the running might start later. It doesn't matter. But how that running took place and how was the denouement or how was the culmination, that is what matters. Why I'm talking this is an anecdote when I'm reflecting on self-motivation it means that even after the 15th interview or even after the 22nd interview, the facial expression of the incumbent or the facial expression of the applicant should be such that it should be as chirpy and cheerful that the interviewer should understand or probably would guess that this is his or her either first interview or second interview. This is what is tantamount to self-motivation. It should not come to a stage where the person should give a gloomy look, morose and pensive. The chances of the interviewer understanding that probably the person is getting interviewed over and over again. So self-motivation should take place by way of emotional intelligence. The other things, academic, other brilliance can prevail. But what is important is the person himself should generate spirits, high spirits, so that on the face of pressure, one should not buckle under pressure. Rather, self-motivation should prompt him or her to stand up on his feet, literally or figuratively, and face the situation, smartly. Then we come to self-regulation. When I'm talking of self-regulation through an example, it is as simple as that I should know the Lakshman Rekha. I should know where I should stop. Self-regulation. In certain books, Daniel Goleman's this tenet is also mentioned as self-control. So either self-control or self-regulation. So self-regulation, I should not go topsy-turvy. I should not go wayward, overboard. I should know where I should stop. I should know my limits when I'm talking of displaying emotional intelligence. It could be in terms of sense of proportion. It could be in terms of exhibiting a sense of propriety in professional transactions. So self-regulation. And the first one, self-awareness, our young friends would definitely have been exposed to something which is known as Johari window by two psychologists, Joel Luft and Ingelham Haddy. And Johari window says, on the x-axis I, self, and on the y-axis you, that is the others. And it's a square divided into 4 quadrants. There are 4 areas. The first area is I know, you know, the open area. The second is either the hidden area or the blind area. So hidden area, I know, but others do not know. So if I am asked a question, if I do not know, I should have the humility to confess that I'll come back later. But if I dodge, at that point of time, I might get away. But when the recipient knows the answer, my self-esteem might be in jeopardy if I've said something wrong. So I should not hide. That is in terms of hidden area. And in order to reduce the hidden area, I should submit, I should confess, I should tell. Once the hidden area is removed, automatically the self-open area increases. The blind area, at the end of 2 years, I asked my young friends, students who become my colleagues and friends later on, that see, dear friends, you have watched me over the last 2 years in class. I'm genuinely interested as a teacher in my self-improvement. Would you please figure out which are the things in these 2 years you found I have certain forte limited, and which are the things you feel I need to improve upon? Then what I'm essentially doing, I do not know what are my mannerisms. I do not know what are my inadequacies. But when I'm told that, I reduce my blind area. So reducing blind area would call for inquiring, probing, soliciting. And the last area, I do not know, you do not know, it happens perchance. Someone does not sing in the normal frame of things, but once he or she sings, we find that he or she sings in a very prolific way. So that is the dark area. It happens through chance. Why I'm saying this is an anecdote when I'm talking of self-awareness, we should know each one of us in the context of Johari window, our open area. That is, I know, you know. So I know about me. I'm a faculty in the area of HR and OB in Globsyn Business School for the last 17 years. That is, I know, DPC knows, and the world knows. So this is open area. So this cannot be refuted even by my detractors, because a single person cannot, be, or I would not say that is hypocrisy, but there would be, certain preponderance, always some likes, some may not be likes, but open area would contain certain questions. Walls cannot be refuted by even a single detractor. This is when I'm talking of what is meant by self-awareness. We should know threadbare about ourselves. So this is what Daniel Goleman says. So my young friends and all the revered seniors here, ladies and gentlemen, when we are talking of emotional intelligence as a constituent of leadership success, barring the physical quotient, that we should maintain a fit body. In terms of intelligence quotient, that is reasonably we should be updated in our cognitive skills. In terms of spiritualness or spiritual quotient, that means we should be more compassionate, we should be more cared, we should be more transcendent. What is important is we should be emotionally intelligent. That means we should be self-aware, we should be self-regulating, we should be self-motivating, we should display empathy, and we should display social skills. I am aware there is a sword of Damocles hanging over the head, the time factor. I'll exactly pause at 3:45, allowing for 15 minutes Q&A. So let me go on with my slides now, having elaborated the 5 ingredients of emotional intelligence. So it is commonly said that is while it is essential to have high intelligence quotient for getting a job, it is very important to have high emotional quotient to sustain the job and grow upwards in the corporate hierarchy. This I've already mentioned in my prelude. Emotional intelligence also helps to foster effective personal relationship. In fact, this I have experienced myself. Over the last 5 decades, I started my career on a very humble note, speaking 5th of February 1973. It almost appears before yesterday. And all these years or decades, I've come to realize that individual brilliance is good, but what matters is teamwork, and what matters is relationship building. And once the relationship is cemented, automatically it takes the person up in the organizational hierarchy. EI precisely strives to achieve that. Every job requires a special attribute of different faculties, different domains, different spaces. Marketing calls for ability in influencing people. Finance demands being in the comfort zone with numbers. But HR necessitates empathy, which is a cardinal element of emotional intelligence, apart from the other 4 elements. Now, the emotional quotient can be ascertained through application of psychometric instruments. It's mentioned here, such exercises, write-ups are attached. At the end, I would like to show you 2 psychometric exercises. If you are interested, I have submitted this to AIMS leisurely. You can also request, you can also, network with me. I can also send you the psychometric exercises. You yourself will be able to calibrate what is your rubric or what is your EI. So what is your emotional intelligence to those psychometric exercises, which I will show you at the end. So emotional intelligence is very important for managers, as it is one of the most important deciding factor for relationship management. I have been emphasizing on the point that relationship is all that matters, which helps to migrate to higher levels. Retention, so resulting in motivation, retention, self-management, and managing others. So emotional intelligence is the ability of an individual to deal successfully with other people. It is not only to manage one's own self, but it is also to successfully deal with other people, reduce conflict, avoid skirmishes, motivate other people, understand one's own feelings, and appropriately respond to the everyday environment. In Working with Emotional Intelligence, author Daniel Goleman defines EI in the workplace as the ability of the employee to recognize their own feelings, the feelings of others, what motivates them, and how to manage their emotions, both in themselves and in relationships with others. Emotional intelligence, now this is again a caveat. It says, sometimes when we talk of emotional intelligence, the interpretation is a person who displays high intelligence is soft. It is not being soft pedaling. So emotional intelligence doesn't mean being soft. It means being smart and intelligent about emotions, a different way of being smart. Emotional intelligence is your ability to acquire and apply knowledge from your emotions and the emotions in others in order to be more successful and lead a more fulfilling life. At the end of this presentation, I would like to tell you anecdotally about, another example about my 40 years old teacher who is also associated with AIMS and through whom only I had the honor and privilege to network with AIMS, Professor R.C. Bhattacharya, presently touring in Malaysia. And I would like to tell you his example of pepping up or, bolstering up the spirits of others, his way of trying to display empathy and his way of trying to motivate others by understanding feelings. But that is reserved for the last slot. So emotional intelligence doesn't mean being soft. It means being intelligent about emotions, a different way of being smart. Emotional intelligence is your ability to acquire and apply knowledge from your emotions and the emotions of others in order to be more successful and lead a more fulfilling life. Now, see, these are the emotions which have been depicted or portrayed. We can be excited, we can be in a tender stage, we can be fearful, trepidated, scared, we can be exasperated, angry, we can be morose, sad, we can be chirpy, that is happy. So we all need to channelize these types of emotions so as to be productive in the workplace. So the 5 parts to this emotional intelligence: one is knowing what you are feeling, second is managing the feelings, especially distressing feelings, third is self-motivation, and the fourth is empathy, and the fifth is managing relationships. So why EQ then? It is the distinguishing factor that determines if we make lemonade when life hands us lemons or spends our life stuck in bitterness. So friends, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, out of PQ, out of IQ, out of EQ, out of SQ, you would agree by this time that, EQ is something which is significant. And if we possess this, and if we try to imbibe and cultivate this, it will help to be, an effective leader in the workplace. So EQ is the distinguishing factor that helps us to maintain a warm relationship or distant contact. High EQ, warm relationship. Low EQ, distant contact. As simple as that. So empathy. So we have already spoken about empathy. I have talked about my industry example, understanding what the other person is going through and being there. So empathy, hand holding, that is again one form of empathy. So don't forget, a person's greatest emotional need is to be appreciated. And when you are appreciating that, you are empathizing with the other person. You are displaying social skills. You are again building up warm relationships. So don't give up. See, the child is never giving up. Don't give up when you still have something to give. Nothing is really over until the moment you stop trying. So this is the exact chart or the exact, slide which depicts the 5 ingredients, the definition, and the hallmarks. So kindly remember Daniel Goleman, the person who proposed, the proponent, and please also remember the 5 ingredients: self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, empathy, social skills. Kindly remember my examples. If you at least remember, or in your life you will find number of examples to enunciate all this, and the definition. So self-awareness, understand moods. I talked about the open area, the Johari window, the self-regulation, the Lakshman Rekha, the self-motivation, to hold up and to stand on the spirits. Empathy, that means understanding others' feelings. And social skills, that means building networks, managing relationships, etc. So pay attention to self and others' body language. Very important. Dr. Desmond Morris, the proponent of body language. Listen more, speak less. This is again another cardinal rule of emotional intelligence, develops empathy. So we should get curious, but not furious. Watch what others say, especially when frustrated or annoyed. Reframe negative emotions into curiosity. This makes absolutely no sense to me. Can be replaced with, do you see something in this that I must be missing? So, we can paraphrase, we can rephrase statements so that we build relationships. So why is it required? Elicit pride in others, reason for working together, thereby inspiring leadership can be displayed. Remember that emotions are contagious. If you are emotional positively and I come in touch with you, it will have a contagious effect on me, positive or negative. So a dominant person's emotions, negative or positive, always influence others. Leaders should be careful to show only those emotions which they want to see in others. So we all know this, being all in the management fraternity, the Maslow's, the 5 levels of needs, the deficit needs at the end, at the bottom, and at the top, at the apex, the being needs. So starting from physiological, then safety, belongings, esteem, self-esteem, and self-actualization. So when we are talking about emotional intelligence, we should know what is the relevance of giving this in this slide. The relevance is we should know which level of need is our person whom I am interacting with is currently in. And I need to tailor-make, or I need to customize my delivery so that it leads to a win-win situation between me and the respondent. So one has to have friends because loneliness breaks the spirit. So the power of belongingness, it says, to have a collective life. If you could just say one thing that would lend and help to stay physiologically and psychologically and physiologically healthy. That is why I talked about, starting from PQ also. So being connected to family and friends, so that we can be, in the same fraternity, in the same community, brotherhood. So without feelings, we become robots. It is the feeling and emotions that makes us satisfied or dissatisfied. It is a different way of being smart, includes knowing what are our feelings. It's a social skill, getting relationships with others. So again, the repetitive part comes. This we need to remember: self-awareness, managing emotions, self-motivation, empathy, and social skills. Yes, it can be learned at any age. It can be upgraded at any stage. In fact, age and maturity are positively correlated. These are not deterrents. Emotional intelligence skills are making us effective and useful for everybody. And it is useful. We want to be happy and effective life. So this is all. Now, I would like to, after I stop share, before I show you my 2 Word document, that is the psychometry exercise, I cannot resist myself by sharing the temptation of how, my teacher, who is the vice chairman of, Globsyn Business School and the chairman of AIMS Bengal region, how he motivates me or how he displays emotional intelligence. I was doing my PhD, and this PhD, I owe my debt of gratitude to my chairman, Mr. Bikram Dasgupta, our founder chairman, executive chairman, CEO. At his behest and behest of my vice chairman and others, our director, Mr. Rahul Dasgupta, I could only do my PhD at a senior age, thanks to Globsyn and all my colleagues who have been so supportive. But at that point of time, 210 to 213, those 3 years, when I was doing my PhD, a point came, ladies and gentlemen, friends and dear students, where I was really beset with whether I would be able to prosecute till the final stage, because statistics had come in and all those Bartlett's tests of sphericity, Cronbach's alpha, I did not know anything of those because I did not have stats during my PGDM, and literally, I thought that I would be collapsing. So Professor R.C. Bhattacharya, he saw me in such a state and he said, "Why are you looking so crestfallen? Why are you looking so morose?" Then I said, "Sir, literally at the behest of the chairman, you vice chairman and Globsyn, I've started this PhD, but it will not meet a successful end." He said, "Please come to my room." I went to his room and he said, "What would you like to have?" So I said, "Sir, I do not have that frame of mind to have anything." "Okay, I'll order tea for you." The tea came and he started, in his unimitable way. He said, "DPC, once Mahadev was flying with Parvati in heaven." So I said, "Sir, my problem is statistics. My problem is Cronbach's alpha. How Shiv, Mahadev and Parvati comes into the picture?" DPC, please don't interrupt. Tea has come. Please listen to what I'm saying. So Mahadev was flying with Parvati, and Parvati saw a very poor person on earth, dragging his feet, cannot walk. And she told her husband, "Darling, you have to do something for this old man who is your devotee, who is an admirer." Mahadev Shiva said, nothing doing. Even if I do, it would not benefit him. Parvati continued to pester on Shiva. Probably Shiva at that point of time remembered the old adage. That is, a happy wife makes a happy life. My colleague, Dr. Kavita Shastri and other friends probably are smiling. So anyway, Mahadev felt, okay, if wife is telling, let me throw a gold bar from heaven down to earth. Mahadev threw the gold bar. Now this poor person, meanwhile thought, all through my life, I have walked with my eyes open. I never have experienced blindfoldedly walking. Let me put blinkers on my eyes and let me walk. He put blinkers on his eyes, the old man, and he walked, and the gold bar was lying where it fell, and he did not see. His story came to a pause, and Professor RCB said, listen, DPC, what you need to do what you are expected to do. That means you need to slog. If you are destined to get PhD, you will get PhD. If you are not destined, just like that Mahadev's, what has happened to that old person, it will happen likewise. So just remove your facial expression from that pensive state and come to a very chirpy state. This is my teacher's way of motivating me, of empathizing me, and I felt elated. And cut long story short, with the help of Globsyn, and I could cross over that journey, successfully getting PhD in my topic, spirituality in management, which aims kindly giving me an opportunity. Another day I would talk about spiritual quotient on spiritual intelligence. It is exactly 3:45 by my watch. 1 or 2 minutes I would show you more. I will show you the two Word documents. So this is that, share screen. Now, this is one. Later on, when I show you, you have to tell me whether it is yes or no, visible. Can you show me a thumb, Professor Nandy? Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here, as I said, I would share 2 psychometric exercises on emotional intelligence. These are 10 questions. You read these questions, you tick mark anyone, and as you scroll down, the answer screen at the end. So in certain cases, what is the right answer? A carries 10, B carries 0, whatever. And you tabulate and calibrate your emotional intelligence. So it is 10 into 20. 20 is the highest, 200. So if you are 100, your EI is optimum. If you are 200, your EI is foolproof. This is exhibit 1. And the exhibit 2, with that I conclude, this is my share screen. This is my second one. This is the psychometric test 2 on emotional intelligence. This contains 15. So here it is 15 into 20, that is 300. So it says at the last page, anything 275 above, up to 300 is very high intelligence quotient. So in between it is moderate. And if it is low, you can perhaps try in another day. So these 2 psychometric tests of Daniel Goleman I've also given so that you yourself can calibrate what is your emotional intelligence. I'm exactly 3:45. I would now be open to questions on the chat box. Allowed to speak. I see my friend, Dr. Shobhoshachi Dasgupta, colleague also. So please feel free. And Professor Nandy sir, if you would like to, I open my chat box also. If I see questions or if you would like to opt, tell me the questions.
So first of all, sir, wonderful session that we must all admit. I have been actually going through the responses that we have received in the chat box. It's a wonderful session. We learned a lot actually from your experiences, the kind of insights that you have provided, and it was very, very, very enlightening session that I can tell you.
Thank you, sir.
While we would be looking at the questions that we would be having, but I would start with one question that I'm having.
Please, sir.
Uh, I felt I was actually listening to you, and I could find there were a lot of things that we have mentioned in the slides. One that I could remember is the things that in terms of the hierarchy that one probably travels when he joins an organization. Now, I came across a person, and that's kind of an experience that I'd like to share. As I came across a person, a lady, in fact, who is a senior manager and working in a reputed organization, is having two children. Now, and she used to feel a kind of intense guilt, what I would say, about some kind of missed opportunities. Now, I would explain that thing. It's like, she would actually work for some hours in the organization. She could see the peers working much harder in the organization. And at the same time, at the home also, she often used to get distracted, or rather, I would say tired, to fully engage with her children. So there is a kind of, things which is happening. Now, on one hand, she wanted to be a better employee or risk the career failure that she would be having. And on the other side, she wanted to be a better mother. And there is also a risk which is associated, that the risk of neglecting the family. Now, at this crossroads, when we are talking about, and it is quite a kind of similar situations everybody over here probably would have experienced at some point of time or the other. In this context, I would like to know, how does a person become, when you're saying about this emotional intelligence, how do you handle that thing? And probably, how does emotional intelligence help a person in this kind of a situation?
I will tell you, sir, my way. In fact, I would quote a gentleman by name Mr. R.K. Talwar, who was one of the former chairmen of SBI, State Bank of India. And, this gentleman became a devotee. He was in Pondicherry also. And senior people on this platform would recall him. He, in his book, and even Professor S.K. Chakraborty, Dr. Shitangshu Chakraborty, who is the doyen of spirituality in management of IIM Calcutta, in his book also he has quoted Mr. R.K. Talwar by saying that there is something called golden silence. And he has formulated, basically, he was a professor of finance in Indian Statistical Institute. Then he came to HR in IIM Joka, and he, set up the Center of Human Values and Ethics, as you know. So this professor, he said, that is, I would like to quote Dr. R.K. Talwar, which I am, emphasizing or here, endorsing here. He says, in such cases, what is required is this golden silence is equal to inner voice plus divine grace plus introspection. That is introspection / meditation. So in such a case, what you rightly said, in fact, I am also no exception. I also have the same, or have had also, or now also in one for the other, I have certain types of dichotomous situation. So at that point of time, rather being vocal or rather being agitated, I try to practice this golden silence and look to this inner voice. That is what comes from within. And this golden silence, as he said, the three things, that is, one is golden silence. So I remain composed, I remain reticent, I pray. It's not that I'm talking anything of religion, but I meditate. That is why he has added the meditation part. So if I be silent, if I be reticent, if I be composed, if I introspect, something, the divine grace will come. Automatically, it will help me to tide over both the two conflicting situations, because there is no point of blaming one over the other. So it is better to remain composed and trying to see how one can address each rather than creating a mess of the two. So at one point of time, probably, he can go for a counselor or she can go for a counselor self. But the best advocacy that Mr. Talwar professed and which I felt also it happened in my life and I got benefit. That means if I remain composed and if I do my work to the extent I can in my present orbit, I think that will solve the problem, not in entirety, but at least to a great extent. This is my submission. This
Right,
is
sir. Right, sir.
Thank you, sir. Welcome now. Sir, if you can figure out one or two questions, because we need to, at 4 o'clock, it's in the mind, but one or two questions, if you can, from the chat box or...
Yeah. Okay, before actually that all these things comes in, I'll go for the second one. If you allow me.
Please, please. I am also trying to figure out.
Okay. While also it's from my experience, I worked in many organizations and I could find out that, people talk about, and I'm saying, they talk about toxic bosses. Now, what exactly that we find out is that while we have been working in many organizations, we could find you have to be there and you have to continue, you have to listen to your boss, even if he's not right, that you know very well. Now, in this kinds of situations, anger is something which comes naturally. After all, we are all human beings. Anger comes very naturally. And I could find out that, out of all those emotions that you have displayed over there in one of the slides, anger is one of them. Now, controlling anger at those kinds of situations, it becomes so difficult.
Yes.
You talk about emotional intelligence and controlling your anger, and you do not respond to that situation just like that at that present situation. It becomes very difficult. Now, in those kinds of situations, how a person, like a normal person like me, probably would handle the situation in terms of having you said, no, that's emotional intelligence quotient is higher or lower. So how maybe a person with a lower emotional quotient would probably handle the situation?
Thank you so much, Professor Dibyendu, sir. The rejoinder to this question will be on a lighter vein, because this was my same problem with due regards when I was working in Organon. At that point of time, Infar India Limited, my designation was product sales manager, and I had two bosses. None of these two bosses are on earth now, but I learned so many things from them. But as a product sales manager, I was reporting to marketing manager operations. But there was another gentleman, a very knowledgeable person. He was marketing manager administration, but incidentally, these two great people never saw eye to eye. And I, being in the receiving end, I always used to suffer, and I also at times used to be reprimanded. That means I used to listen to my boss, marketing manager operations, and marketing manager administration used to tell me that one day I will also have my own day. So why did you listen to him and not me? So that continued. But when I landed, sir, in Hyderabad with Dr. Reddy's laboratories, it was in a middle age, not in the formative age. Otherwise, I would have tackled in Organon also. A gentleman from Pfizer joined Dr. Reddy's. And this gentleman asked me very seriously, Mr. Chattopadhyay, do you know the two golden principles in life? So I said, Mr. Kamath, which two golden principles are you referring to? There are so many golden principles in life. So this gentleman said, golden principle number 1 says the boss is always right. And golden principle number 2 says that if you feel the boss is wrong, refer back to golden principle 1, which always says the boss is right, is always right. And sir, frankly speaking, after I heard those two principles, I never had any problems. So many bosses, some bosses were quiet, some bosses were a bit, angry. I used to say, that is what I tell Dr. Shoboshachi. I kept on, because this, of course, that might be in an extreme. That gentleman taught me, see, DPC, you should know how to get along with your boss. There are books managing your boss. So you say, sir, the more I'm seeing you, the more I'm getting overwhelmed. Can there be such a perfect gentleman like you? Or can there be such a perfect gentle lady like you? You might not mean it, but if you articulate in this way, even angry bosses literally within inverted commas, mind me for the language, will come to your pocket. So Doing all this in a humorous way, I could manage with conflicting type of bosses, with angry type of bosses in my career from a middle age to now at this age. It never happened. So this I can only respond, sir, in a lighter way rather than giving any prescribed formula. So the two golden principles in life.
Right, sir. So I've got two questions actually.
Yes, I now see, yes. Please.
The first one is how to differentiate between EQ and SQ. That's the first one. And the second, which is there, is what type of EQ is required for a person to develop motivation when the person is in difficult situation?
Right, right. So, sir, let me answer the first question now. Since I mentioned about SQ, and here we have talked about EQ precisely, but in order to set the perspective right, spiritual intelligence had got many proponents, Mitroff and Danton. I said on the home ground also Dr. S.K. Chakraborty. But the first spiritual intelligence, spiritual quotient was articulated by Miss Dana Zohar in 1997. So 2 years after Daniel Goleman came out with emotional intelligence. The essential difference is when we talk of emotional intelligence is confined only to this 5. Self-awareness, self-motivation, self-regulation, empathy, social skills. But when we talk of spiritual intelligence, it means connecting with the higher self, transcendence. That means going out. You know, it says that selfless service. As I said, transcendence. In fact, the Sanskrit word lok shangraha. So lok shangraha, when I'm doing this, I'm in a spiritual quotient mode. That means I consider my calling, my profession, I consider my well-being, and I consider always I'm in a state of bliss. I'm in a state of happiness. That is spiritual quotient, and it is divorced from religiosity, but it is being compassionate. So that is the difference. But what you said, sir, the second question, that when I'm in a difficult situation, which comes foremost in emotional intelligence, if you ask me, are the two things. Our first is the self-motivation part, priority 1, followed by the self-regulation part. At that point of time, social skills and empathy and even self-awareness will take a low key, even self-regulation. But what is important at that point of time is self-motivation. So if self-motivation can prevail, even difficult situations also can be tide over. This is my rejoinder, sir. Achha, sir, sorry for the interruption. Some of the friends here have requested for the psychometric exercise. Psychometric exercise I have shared with my friend, Dr. Sunil Ji. It is with AIMS, and I can also share. So I'll be more than happy to share. So it's other questions, feel free. But as I've opened the chat box, it talks of another question. Then I leave it up to you. We are almost 4 o'clock, 4:01. So the question that I see, can EQ be developed among students in class? Yes, EQ can be developed in students in class by I mentioned about, sir, certain activities that we do in Globsyn. When we do all these activities, be it the carnival, be it old age homes, etc., all the students develop such a camaraderie, develop such a bonhomie amongst themselves that the students, what they wear when they came and what they churn out after 2 years, they give a totally different outlook. So my answer is yes, sir. It can be developed through certain activities, social activities. Over to you, Dibyendu sir, for the remainder of it.
So it's quite very, very interesting kind of session that I would say we learned a lot of things, even in the questions that all of you had and you posted it over there. We also could gather a lot of insights from that. So we are coming to the end of this particular webinar, but before that we conclude, we would like to first thank our noted speaker, Dr. Debaprasad Chattopadhyay sir, for his immense contribution in this particular area, in this particular webinar, for sharing his thoughts, his experiences, everything and enlightening us with such lucid examples. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you to AIMS. Thank you to Nandagopal sir. Thank you to Professor Dibyendu sir. Professor Nandy sir, if you kindly allow me 30 seconds, I would just dilate one more example of my industry days, because these are all precious, in my repository. Very humbly speaking, this was my industry days second trip abroad. And I came back from the Southeast Asia, that is Far East, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand. The company had given me dollars also, and the company had given me traveler's check also. But everything was sponsored by our collaborators there. So I carried back many of the wherewithal, which I did not require. I came back and I told the same marketing director who gave me 5,000 rupees on behalf of the company, sir, I would like to return this balanced traveler's check, and I would like to return this dollars to you because I did not require this. This gentleman said, I'm talking of empathy, relationship, social skills. He said, no, we have taken this money under FTS, Foreign Travel Scheme, in your name. We do not need this. You need not return this to the company. We are authorizing you. You go to American Express, go to Bank of America, get this, in cash and get it converted into rupee and put it in your FD account. I was so overwhelmed that a company, would like to tell this. And, again, this was probably empathy, social skills, relationship building in paramount stage. Thank you, Professor Nandy, sir. It was my honor, to be in this platform under your moderation. And again, once again, I wholeheartedly thank all the august people in AIMS, Dr. Nandagopal sir, and everyone, the present and past presidents, all the other people. I thank Globsyn, ladies and gentlemen. And I take this opportunity to thank all the listeners, the audience, and my dear students all across this platform. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So it's time to say goodbye to all of you till we again meet again on the same kind of session with again Professor Debaprasad Chattopadhyay, also taking on us some other topic, as we would say. So before we actually say goodbye, I would like to thank Dr. Nandagopal sir, the president of AIMS, Dr. R.K. Patra, the RVP East, AIMS and all the AIMS members, all the board members, the AIMS secretariat, and obviously all the participants who have come and joined this particular webinar. Thank you once again, and goodbye till we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye. Namaskar.